Hello and welcome to Talking TSM, the Game House's talk show about TSM's LCS team. I am Robert Haynes, your host, your guide into the world of TSM. And wow, what a weird weekend. Yeah, I don't know what else to say other than that. It was just strange. It started off so badly. In terms of just, the way I was like, oh my God, like, they lose to Dig in a game they should have won. Then they dominate 100 Thieves, and then they win a game they, shouldn't have won against C9 after, a terrible early game. But it just shows the resilience of this team, and there's a theme that I want you all to start paying attention to as we're going through this, because I think it's really important to take note of some things. And I went back through the games. I watched them for, I think, a third time this morning again, just to make sure I was really caught up on it. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. Let's just get into it. Okay, so in the Dig draft, they just gave us Kaisa and Hecarim. Even though we didn't do enough with it, like this comp that TSM gets is great. And like Dignitas drafted really weirdly. They draft the Rel into the Alistar, who is very much a counter. And they had other options. I don't really understand why they did what they did here. Because TSM drafts out more the Alistar more to not allow the Callista to get it, because we know that combo can be absolutely deadly. So it's just baffling to me that they allow that, and I don't know, it's strange draft from Dignitas, to be honest. And TSM, again, they get a comp that they like. The Shen on top of the Hecarim, on top of the Alistar, on top of Lost. The Hecarim ultimate, giving the plasma to Lost. And then just the Victor being solid in his own right. It was just an interesting draft. They get the early kill. Huni flash taunts. Great play from him and Spica to get the first kill onto Fake God. The theme is, though, they won't do enough with it afterwards. Even if the Rift Herald was for free, TSM give up, getting an early Drake from this. They should have. They had the opportunity to. And for some reason, Dignitas, are the ability for TSM to go and get this Drake, instead of getting the Rift Herald, when they have a man advantage on the map, they should have just sprinted down. Huni still had TP. He could have easily just gone down. They get Drake control. They get that first Drake, and then he TPs back up. But instead, they're giving Rift, they're getting Rift, and I don't know, just they could have gotten a Drake for free, and we'll see in this game that it comes back to bite them. I don't mind Rift Herald, but the more and more I read about it, and maybe I'm being influenced by LS a little bit, I'll be honest, like I do agree with his opinion on it. It's just unnecessary sometimes to commit as much resources as teams do to it, especially with the way that TSM uses it. So, then TSM gets into the first Drake fight. They pick a fight, and they win. But Fake God, yet again, over an objective, is just getting free farm. He's so far ahead at this point. I think he's like 20-something CS, a couple plates. And that's fine, and TSM do a good job getting the fights, but they just don't do anything with it. Yes, winning a fight is great. Getting kills are great. But they don't do anything in terms of towers, really. They just, yay, we want to fight. Boo, you gave up Dragon for it. And you are letting a Gangplank just free farm. So, meh. Power of Evil gets greedy with Rift. They drop it, and he wants to get a tick on the tower so he can get some plate gold, and and then he dies. And it's like, when are TSM going to learn how to use these rifts? They prioritize them so much, and it feels like it's a 50-50 shot if they're going to use it correctly. Like, somebody normally dies, or the Rift Herald dies before it can reach towers. Like, I think just in the LCS in general, I don't think the Rift is used properly. And truthfully, for TSM, they have fumbled it so many times. I'd almost rather never see them. Like, I would rather TSM never get another Rift Herald for the entire season if a Drake is up. Because it's not worth it. They're prioritizing it so much, and I know that they love to go get towers, and that Rift is a great way to help you get ahead in certain lanes and everything, but they aren't using it properly. And if you're not going to use it properly, then you just shouldn't use it. Now, again, I assume that they will get better with it. I assume that things will get better, and that's fine. But for the love of God, just use it more correctly, because it's just been bad. Lost and Spica are most of the gold lead for TSM, which is not a bad thing whatsoever. Like, Spica's dominating, Lost is doing great in his lane in this one, and then TSM is Rift prioing again, and guess what? Lost, is coming up, which this is the right play to do. Is Lost comes up to the mid lane, not necessarily to actually go into the fight, but the idea is so he can pick up the farm in mid lane and then push that in, then they can use the Rift Herald to take the tower. But the problem was he's not respecting Saligo, and Saligo almost just straight up kills him. And Dignitas are like, hey, Lost is worth gold, right? I believe his bounty was worth more than the Rift Herald at the time. So, yeah, let's turn on to him instead. And without Huni ultimate, which, again, having to use that in that situation is not exactly ideal, he would have died. And this is all because they're just trying to get Rift. Like, dang, guys, come on now. Like, I'm not saying not to use it. Like, again, I know I was maybe over-exaggerating, saying, well, I would rather not see them use it, blah, blah, blah. Like, there's just, I don't know, there's just something inherent about the way that they're using it that I just don't understand. But anyways, TSM, it's a close game, and then the best defense of an engage I've probably seen this season. Spica's waiting. Lost is using himself as bait. Dignitas take the bait again. They 3-man dive, and TSM just absolutely wipe them out. You get Spica over top. Sword Art comes in. Power of Evil's on his way down. Lost is able to jump in and do damage. Spica is just absolutely messing them up under the tower. And that should have been the game. That should have been it. That should have been, there's no chance that they come back in this game, because then TSM should have gotten much better vision control over the Drake. They already were down 2 Drakes. There's no way they should have not been overly prioritizing making sure they get this 3rd Drake, because, like, truly, the only way Dignitas comes back is with a Dragon Soul. That is it. And getting the 3rd Drake for TSM stops, it gives them 10 minutes at least until something has to be done about it for TSM. But they just, I don't know, it's just bad. And you see, like, again, Fake God's been getting all, because Shen has to leave lane for his ult and everything. That's fine. But again, Fake God's just farming up, and he's able to be like, hey, I'm not in the fight, but guess what, here comes my ult. And TSM just aren't respecting it at all. They're just running straight through it already early in the game multiple times. And you're like, oh, I hope they don't do it, later into the game when he's actually there and he can hurt. Spoiler alert, they do. So anyways, they have this, they're setting up around the third Drake to fight, which again they're far ahead. There's no reason for them not to have had better positioning on this, but they're just like, well, I'm just gonna kind of mosey on over here. Oh, the only person in the Drake pit right now is Sword Art on an Alistar, and he can see it, and truly, like, Spica has ultimate to get over the pit, and he had smite up. There's no way that he should be just giving this Drake up. It's the only way for them to get back in, and I understand that it puts him in a bad position if he ults and smites and he doesn't get it. But the fact that TSM just didn't do anything with this, it's just crazy to me. Yes, the Rend combo from Neo and Dardoch, smite, like, sure, it's really tough. But you should not be getting bullied out on the third Drake when you're up by like 4K gold. It just can't happen. That is just really, really bad from this team. And, they're throwing this game around these objectives, around Rift Herald, around the Drake. They weren't playing their game. They were doing well in skirmishes, which is what their comp is kind of built for. But, I don't know, just bad. TSM, yet again, get absolutely nothing in response. If you're just going to give it, then go do something else. Don't have 4 people just standing around the frickin' pit. Ugh. Then they have a good fight that they win in the top lane, yet again, thanks to Huni. Huni making great plays. And I know that Shen is a playmaking champion, and it's not necessarily hard to play him, but you got to give credit where it's due. They do stave off the soul. They are able to take the Drake here to stop the bleeding, add an extra 5 minutes. And, they get a Baron after picking off Dardoch, and that should have been it. There's just no way that they should have allowed for a 50 over the frickin' Drake. Ugh. They have such priority, and somehow they just allow for Dignitas to just march their way on down, right into the Drake pit again, even though TSM's up by like 4 or 5K gold. And they shouldn't have been in this position in the first place, because if they would have just actually done something at second or third Drake, actually really should have gotten the first one again instead of, prioritizing Rift. And then, TSM, like, they give up the Drake, which is still fine. They can technically still win the game. But that's their, by the way, that in the Dignitas game, that was their 4th Dragon Soul in a row that they had given up. 4 in a row. Ouch. That's bad. Anywho, TSM force a fight for absolutely no reason. I mean, Spica's not even there yet. And Sword Art's going in, and Power of Evil's doing whatever he's doing, and then Lost just jumps right in and dies instantly. I mean, just instantly. They're fighting in a corridor with, Gragas, the Soligo, or the Orianna ult, Rel's engage, the Gangplank ultimate and Gangplank barrels, like, that have been farmed up like crazy, by the way. And TSM just lose. A game where they were so far ahead. And that 0-2 against Dignitas is currently playing into the reason why they are not second. And instead they are currently third. Blech. And the thing is, like, if Dignitas and TSM finish second and third, they're going to have to face Dignitas in the very first round. And if they keep playing this way against them, where they're throwing or where they're just not, they're like, they go brain dead against them, whether it's in the draft or in the game. It's like Dignitas, like, maybe it's just Mabry being over there, and he has some secret sauce or something that's helping them, understand exactly what TSM's going to do wrong. Because, wow, I mean, it is 2 bad games against Dignitas. And so we head into the 100 Thieves game. And I'm just sitting there, and I was eating dinner, and I wasn't able to really watch this game closely at first. I had to watch it later again, And I watched it again today, and I'm like, all right, what are we gonna do here? They took the Azir right away. They banned the Kaisa, and I'm like, all right, what's TSM gonna do this time? They can't bring out Samira because she's basically not a champion at this point. So what are they gonna do? And they pull out the Olaf and Seraphine, and I've been waiting for this Seraphine. I'm like, God, like it wasn't my top priority, and I know that she's really really good, and I don't even know if I've mentioned her, just because I didn't think that TSM had any interest in playing her. Like she really just doesn't fit Sword Art style. I think I did. I remember actually. I think I was saying that they should look at Seraphine, but I didn't know who would play it. Um, Clearly in this game it ended up being Power of Evil, which was awesome. And then, 100 Thieves picks Lilia and Gnar, and TSM just insta-lock Jace. And I'm like, all right, I like this Jace and Gnar overall. I didn't like our team comp necessarily later on with it, but I don't know. I was happy with it. I was really hoping, honestly, that the Seraphine was going to be an 80 carry. Was going to be played by Lost, but anyways. So TSM also have a really smart ban here that I don't think got any credit. It was the Aphelios ban. I think that was really, really intelligent of them because FBI has played, the Aphelios really well. Smart play. And then, to even further push down the 80 carry meta, TSM first picks the Tristana, in the second round. And I'm like, let's go. Yes, I love it. I don't care where the Seraphine goes. I don't care where the Tristana goes. But we already knew, like, it's good flexibility from TSM. It's so smart. You don't have to, like the other, 100 Thieves or whoever they end up playing, if they use something similar like this, they have to guess where are these champions going. And I love it. I love it so much. The problem I will say that I had was if TSM's not engaging on their terms, then this is not it's not great for them. Like the Seraphine ult is enough to dissuade any fight, but she has to hit it correctly. And again, I mean, I look at this and there's just so much. There's Gnar ult, there's Azir ult, there's Kalista ult, there's the hook from Thresh. There's Lilia, Lullaby. Like, there's just so much. And TSM, like, this is a complicated, like, people don't understand. This is a complicated comp for them to play. They have to engage at the right times. And only Spica can, and kind of Sword Art too, obviously. Like, only they can really live through all this engage. And yes, the Tristana allows to jump out. But it's just, they could very easily, if 100 Thieves gets ahead and they start pushing into TSM, it's going to be bad. Anyways, we're in the game a couple minutes and Lost barely lives. I mean, the most sliver of health. If he had 20 health, I'd be shocked. Luckily, between Sword Art's support item and his passive and some health pots, Lost is able to live. And at the beginning, no surprise really, but I mean, Huni is just absolutely abusing Someday in the top lane. TSM were able to get out the Thresh flash earlier, and Sword Art's like, all right, fam, I'm going in because Spica's down there, to play as that third member just in case if they need him. They didn't need him, but the idea was in case if the Lilia was around there, or in case if Ryoma came down, or even if Someday TPs or something, right? Like, Spica's there to help out, but they don't even need it because instead of trying to focus onto the Kalista, Sword Art goes straight onto Huhi. Lost just jumps right in, absolutely smashes him. He's dead. Such a great play by them. And I love the cojones on Lost. I mean, we're going to have to see how he plays, with in a meta that maybe is a little bit more like, I should say maybe is a little bit more, in a meta that is, without the two divey, the two divey 80 carries in Tristana and Kaisa, but man, oh man, does he he just loves to get in there, and he's just playing so well. TSM also used this after getting the kill. They don't give up the first Drake. Double thumbs up. Let's go. Already, much better start to the game. Actually, they had a great start to the Dignitas game too, but the every part of the game is going better, not just the fights. 100 Thieves give up a lot for Rift Herald. Hey, there's one of our themes. Rift Herald problems. And TSM, learning from their mistakes, they run right at them. They get the kill. This wasn't really talked about at all, but the prediction on Power of Evil for the Flash had, I think it was Ryoma who dies here. Had Ryoma not already died, that ult would have been perfect because I think it would have hit 2 of them. So it's really, really nice play there. TSM early game is clearly better. Like these last 2 games and even, the weeks before, that's just kind of proven like they are getting better at their early game, which was our biggest question. So if they can have better early games and they can continue to have strong mid games and they can continue to have really good late games, this is a team that is really coming together. Like, again, I don't know. I'm not playing the game anymore where I'm going to say I know exactly where each person is ranked right now. I will eventually reveal, my my all-pro teams when I'm allowed to. Obviously voting hasn't started yet, but when it does, we'll get a vote and I'll be excited to use it. But TSM are just slowly just climbing their way back up. They're playing as a team. They're learning how to play together. And, I mean, let's be honest. The talk about Hanser and Cody-san coming in, glad we were patient, right? Yeah. Yeah, we should be. TSM have another good defense against the Rift Herald. They, keep 100 Thieves. Even though 100 Thieves hit the smite, they weren't able to get the eyeball. So, great defense. Again, 100 Thieves giving a lot of resources to it and they get nothing from it. And then there's a fight in the bot lane where Lost kind of got caught out and Spica just straight up steps right in front of the hook at the most perfect opportunity to save him. And the problem is we start to see as this game goes on, without the Gnar, so this comp from 100 Thieves, without the Gnar, they're going to lose most of these fights. They're already far behind. They need to play around the Gnar. And this is seen at the 3rd Drake where TSM just burn it. And then Ryoma is just for some reason in the weirdest spot right next to the pit. TSM are just, Alistar jumps in. Huni brings down the hammer. They just throw everything and he's just deleted instantly. Doesn't even matter. And then the Gnar tries to jump back in because he's like, TSM's used all their stuff. And they're just so far behind, it doesn't matter. TSM just clean up. And Sword Art's just playing probably his best Alistar game of the season, which has been awesome. Then, Someday almost single-handedly gets 100 Thieves back in the game. He ults Huni and Power of Evil, killing both of them after Power of Evil used his entire combo on him. Gets him down to half health, but, he's about to turn Mega. And, we all know Jace doesn't do well into CC, so just straight up kills both of them. And they start positioning for Baron, which is a smart play, honestly. But then Lost plays hero. Again, 100 Thieves ignore, they should have ignored Sword Art and to a certain degree Spica too. But they're in there, they're taking Baron hits, and TSM, just start kind of posturing, and who he hits the hook, they all go over, Ryoma, Streamer shuffles, everything. But the problem is while Spica gets off some good damage, Sword Art's able to not get some knockups and stuff, but Lost is just sitting there already in a good spot with the Tristana and just starts unloading on them. And instead of focusing on Sword Art, if they had just been like, oh, who cares about the Alistar? Let's get in onto the Tristana. She just jumps in and just basically cleans up house. I mean, absolutely such a great play. Yeah. I mean, TSM then, Someday lives with 200 health. They double TP get themselves into not a great position for it. This leads to another Drake. Instead of them trying to take Baron with only 3 members, they go, okay, don't need to worry about that. Let's just go take the Drake because we get our 3rd one. Really, really good. The Callista, you're seeing is not doing as well when she's this far behind. She's kind of useless. And then they just blew up Huni and Ryoma in a row. I mean, just the combination, and that's because, again, like we said at the beginning, they're picking their own fights with this comp because they put Under Thieves behind. TSM get Mountain Soul. And when I was rethinking about this comp, I like the idea of Huni on the Jace and getting ahead. And I like the idea of the comp as a whole. But the problem still is if they don't get the early lead, then they're playing a dangerous game because Sword Art's the only one who can take, a lot of damage on this team. And pretty much after one fight most of the time, because he'll end up having to ult, TSM are going to be basically, without their front line, and people can just straight up run at them. So I like this comp. I think it can work very, very well for this team. It was like a bit of an evolution from what we saw the week before with the Huni carry comp. But, obviously the idea was to have Power People play a little bit more supportive. I think this showed that this is probably, his 4th champion that TSM need to be able to pull out, behind the Syndra, the Victor, and the Azir. And that's great. He played her well. I want to see that more. I would love to see more Seraphine in this team comp. I would love to. And again, they could run a very similar comp, and if they gave Huni the Gnar, or if they gave Huni, even the Scions coming back into it, there's a lot of different picks right now that I think that while the Jace was great, I think it was a little bit overkill here to a certain degree. He got himself ahead in lane, but later on in the game, he's not going to get the same use that he would otherwise. So after that game, I'm sitting there and I'm like, all right, TSM are 9-5 right now. This is perfect. They needed at least 9 wins to get themselves into the playoffs. Now it's about how high can they climb. And we said last week, this weekend was a good test for TSM. And we saw them throw against Dignitas, which they shouldn't have done. Obviously, that is still a loss, not something they have to learn from. But they played really well. Until then, they did. And they learned from their mistakes in the next game. They focused more on Drake. They didn't care about Rift Herald. And guess what? They didn't get either Rift Herald, and they won very convincingly. So they head into the C9 game, and we're all like, okay, how's this going to go? And truthfully, I was pretty worried about this game because even though C9 had just lost to Team Liquid, and they're doing this thing again where, apologies, that is my dog. I don't know if you guys can hear that or not. He's a spaz. Anyways, I'll try to talk over it. So my goal here is for us to take a look at why this game for TSM ended up going well. And in the draft, you kind of see it again. I know, again, sorry, I keep saying again. Holy crap. Brain's a little dead from this weekend. Anyways, Lost and Kai'Sa go very well together. And Cloud9 just give her up for nothing. I mean, they banned Pantheon, who hasn't really been used or seen in the meta pretty much at all. They banned the Udyr, which, again, I don't know if he's really pick or ban, and they banned the Rel, which is not honestly terrible, but it's not great to say the least. So my goal here is why are they, like, why are teams just giving him Kai'Sa? Is there something that we don't see? He's played her really well. I mean, there's no reason to just give this up to him right now. Let me see. I'm going to look at this up. I should have done it before, but I wasn't really thinking about it. Yeah. He is currently, and I believe this didn't include this weekend's games. So he is 6-2 on her with a super strong 5.5 KDA. His CS per minute's on, fantastic on her. I don't know. He just they keep giving him her, and TSM are just gonna take that every time. And maybe they thought, aha, well we're gonna give you this terrible lane matchup into Caitlyn, and then we're gonna end up picking the Morgana too, and you're gonna be sitting there like, oh no, this is bad news. And you'd be normally right, but I don't know. Just Ellis is like, oh, the lane matchups are bad, and he's not wrong. But when you look at the team fight potential from TSM, if Cloud9, similar to the 100 Thieves game, don't play around the Fudge Meganar, then TSM can just run at them. They're all really squishy. And let me tell you something. Morgana shield, it ain't going to stop a Renekton, Hecarim, a Zero, Lost diving in and a Sword Art hook. It's going to stop it, a little bit, but like if people just are running in, they're just going to run in. That's not going to stop them from doing that. The disengage I guess would hopefully also be, Sven, Caitlyn traps, perks, gravity field, and I guess some lilting lullabies. I don't know. It felt like a lot of things had to go right for Cloud9's comp to work. The other thing I didn't love here for TSM though was the Nautilus. I think Galio would have been much better for them overall. And maybe that's just because of my obsession with Galio for this team, even though, again, they're 3-0 on it. And maybe TSM just wanted to show something different. I don't know, but I think that Galio would have been really strong here for them. Because you put him over top of the... of anybody. Anybody. All the other four options, they all are able to just dive in perfectly. So I don't really understand why. I don't know, that just the Nautilus didn't make sense here. Anyways, the early invade from Cloud9, holy moly, what? I mean, like it's perfect. They get Sword Art on the Q from Vulcan, and TSM just are in a terrible position. They should have just left Sword Art to die. Instead, they get super lucky and somehow get a kill back. I honestly, I have no idea. Like, that red buff just happens to hit Vulcan, and yeah, Lost gets a free kill, which is, I don't know. And then Blabber's just so far ahead. C9 have the prios early game. Spica's trying to go to his blue, and Blabber shows up. And he's like, well, I can't really do anything, so he has to back off. And Spica's down by like 30 CS so early in the game. And, TSM like, okay, we got to do something, right? So they tried to gank top, which is, let me tell you, there's a strategy to beating C9 right now. It is, we're going to attack Fudge as much as possible. And this is not me ripping on Fudge. He's still young. He'll be better. I fully believe that he's going to learn a lot from this split and be a much stronger player for it. And I think that he'll be able to help them down the road, without a doubt. But right now, he is their weak link. And if you can abuse that, then you can win. And TSM do that. They get him ahead, and and they try this gank top to get Fudge, and for some reason Spica just dies. They're not juggling the aggro at all. Spica just decides to run in anyways. And it's like he just kind of forgot, I guess, that he was taking tower aggro. I don't know. It's strange. Then, Sword Art almost dies, and luckily Huni gets the kill onto Fudge. But Vulcan was there too, and he missed everything. And it was like, why not do something else? I don't know. TSM just confused me at the beginning of this game because this dive should have been the end for them. And if they had played it better, though, it should have been what got him back in the game because Vulcan's just a free kill. If they juggle this aggro a little bit better, and now with Spica dead, he's even further behind Blabber because I think that was his third death. It's either second or third death. I don't remember exactly, but holy moly. And then Kate also is just absolutely abusing the Kaisa. The range matchup's just bad. C9 overcommit in a 2v2, and Lost just bursts down Sven. And again, Sven was so far ahead in this game. And their TSM are getting pushed in, things are not going well for them. And the Q that Vulcan misses is the key for Sword Art to go in. So TSM jump on in. Huni absolutely just bursts down Perks, playing with his advantage because Fudge, by the way, that gank got him so far behind. It didn't work necessarily for TSM, but it did at least give Huni the advantage, and he's just able to absolutely rip through people at this point. But C9 they have this big advantage, and TSM are the ones engaging. They're the ones doing things. That's because that's the way their comp is built. And Cloud9 just didn't do anything with it. I mean, such a big advantage. There's no way that Spica should have been able to get back into this game. Zero. I mean, literally zero way. And yet he does. PoE, by the way, positions terribly again. I don't know why, but he's up in the top lane, going into that fight where Huni kind of cleans up. And while I believe he does get Sven, he just, I don't know, he gets hit by the Vulcan Q and he's super far under the tower. It just feels like it wasn't great. They head into the mid game. C9 have Drake control. They're winning the fights. They're up 2 Drakes, and then Perks just dies to the death squad of TSM. 4 people in the top lane, just not checking. He should have at least had some inkling. There was no reason for him to head down through the brush there, and he just dies. Huni is split pushing like an absolute boss in a matchup that should not have gone as badly as it did for Fudge, but Huni's just playing out of his mind. And then the TSM macros OP again. The Fudge jumps away from Sword Art. They just run at him with Spica and Power of Evil and Huni, and he just dies again. And TSM are fighting back slowly but surely. But even after all of this, Blabber and Sven are so far ahead, but where are they? Right? What are they doing in this game right now? Blabber's just farming, Sven's just farming, and TSM are like, fine. If they're not going to do anything, then we will. And because of this, TSM are also just winning the vision game substantially. Sword Art's going around, clearing out wards like crazy. Spica's doing the same. And this is the story of the year, I think, that nobody's talking about for TSM. Their vision control has been... Now, maybe I truly did not pay as much attention back in the day. You could still tell, but, I didn't really look at the scores and everything. And so this year, I had heard a lot about Sword Art's ability to win the vision game, to win the macro game. And I finally started paying attention to it, and yeah, he's really good at it. And TSM are absolutely benefiting from it. Sure, is he the flashiest $3 million player? No. But he makes the plays when he needs to. His vision and his macro game are easily some of the best in the entire league. And he has been working his way up, in my opinion, to where he is having a major impact in these games for TSM. It may not always be seen in the stat line, or it may not always be seen in the major plays that are made, But and I'm sure everybody's gonna joke, well, TSM and warding, right? TSM paid $3 million for wards, but whatever. It's winning them games. It is. They have better vision almost every game, and in truth, vision wins games. It just does. The teams that have the most information, which is gained from knowing where the other team is at, can win games, especially at this level. In the end, Hecarim being behind meant nothing. Spica's been playing a tankier Hecarim with the Turbo Chem tank. It just makes him so much better, so much stronger. And they just Cloud9 can't do anything else to punish him. Without Gnar tanking, similar to the 100 Thieves game, we see it in fight after fight after fight from TSM. Cloud9 just can't do anything. They're just getting pushed back constantly. And they start the Baron with 5 champions who can't burn it down quickly, right? Gnar, damage over time from Lilia. Perks on the Victor does not do a ton of damage, except for some burst, but not consistent. Caitlyn's not known for ripping down Barons, and Morgana especially is not. So TSM have 2 TPs even after a lost fight. They come right on in. Gnar is still mini at this point, so TSM see their opportunity, and they just run in at their leisure. Now, there is still a chance where this fight can be turned because TSM are fighting in the front lines, and Spica, as we know, has been having some issues hitting his smites. But yet, in this game, he doesn't. He waits. Lilia W's, does her massive damage on it, and Spica just times his smite with her. In the end, Fudge is just so far behind, and C9 are not playing around his Mega at all. TSM dominate another fight in the mid game, in the mid lane. Then they do it one more time in the top lane, and Lost gets a pentakill to end it. Game over. So TSM walk out of their easily their hardest weekend 2-1. And I understand Ryoma coming in for Damonte probably played at least somewhat of an effect on, had somewhat of an effect on 100 Thieves. The sad thing is 100 Thieves should have known that their advantage of just the players knowing each other wasn't going to last. I still think 100 Thieves are a good team. I think their problem is they just relied so much on just being better than everybody else because of their communication at the beginning and their knowledge of each other that they couldn't do anything. They just haven't been getting better. Instead, they play one style, and they should have been working on other things. Instead, they make yet again, like the most 100 Thieves of things is they are just willing to sub people out mid-split constantly as soon as things go bad. And I'm telling you what, Damonte's probably sitting there pissed. I understand that he hasn't been playing up to people's expectations, but I don't know that Ryoma fixes it right now. Maybe Ryoma fixes it over the break and going into the summer, but 100 Thieves just look awful. And TSM caught him at a good time. I don't know if Damonte being there changes the results that much because TSM dominated them in their first matchup too, even more so than this one. But, yeah. And then C9 are starting to falter too. That was their their third loss, I think, in 2 weeks. I want to say that's right. They went 1-2 this week, and I think they went 1-2 the week before. Or maybe it was 2-1. Yeah, I think they've lost 3 out of their last 4 games. And now they're within reach for TSM. When we look at the standings, TSM head into a weekend where they face Evil Geniuses, Immortals, and Golden Guardians. And they are 1 game behind Cloud9 currently. They are tied with Dignitas, but technically behind because of their 0-2 scoreline, which is super unfortunate. But, yeah, they're a game up on 100 Thieves and Team Liquid and 2 games up on Evil Geniuses. So they have theoretically clinched a playoff spot. They realistically only need 1 win this weekend to do it. And even then, I'm pretty sure that if Immortals loses one game this weekend, then TSM clinch. Or if TSM wins one game, then they clinch. They can also take first spot, which would be crazy. If they win all 3 games this weekend, I think that TSM takes the top spot because Cloud9 still has a kind of rough weekend. They have to play Dignitas and Team Liquid this weekend. I believe it is. Let me check. I don't want to give you all false information there. All right, so C9 has to play CLG, which are that team's playing better. Then they play Dignitas, and then they get Immortals. Okay, so they don't have that bad of a weekend. Dignitas was the one who has a tougher weekend. Yeah, they play Team Liquid, then they play Cloud9, and then they get FlyQuest. So, there are 2 games there where Dignitas are going to really have to prove themselves, and FlyQuest is not a pushover as we've seen. And even for Cloud9, they're getting CLG when they're on their up instead of on the downswing. So not great for them. Evil Geniuses haven't looked great. TSM's going to look good against them. Immortals are fighting for a playoff spot. That game might be a little closer. And then they get the hapless Golden Guardians, who they looked bad against. But either way, they only need 1 win. And then they're in the playoffs. And hopefully they will get those wins. And it'll be interesting to see what happens here against, Dignitas and Cloud9. I'd almost rather Dignitas lose 1 game to somebody else and then beat Cloud9. And then if TSM even just 2-0s the weekend or 2-1s the weekend, then they could legitimately have the number 1 seed. No, they'd have to 3-0 still. Yeah, they'd have to 3-0. So if TSM 3-0s and Dignitas lose to Cloud9, or no, beat Cloud9, but then lose to somebody else, then TSM get the 1 seed. Who would have guessed that at the beginning of this season? Certainly not me. After what was such an abysmal start for them. Like, let's not forget, between the login tournament and their first week of play, they were like 3-8 or something like that. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. And ever since, they're 10-5, and they've looked great. They learn. Even from the games that they lose, they learn, and that's what matters. That's what they weren't doing beforehand. I want to end this with a couple things. First off, Lost is legit. Lost is a strong LCS player now. And that feels so good to say, doesn't it? I mean, seriously. It's awesome. It is so good to see him playing as well as he has been. He doesn't die much. He's, I think 3rd in kills in the LCS. His kill participation still leaves a little bit to be desired with, but that's just kind of how TSM play. His first blood rate's been solid. He came all the way back from being down pretty significantly in XP and CS and gold difference to being at least middle of the pack now, and over the last couple weeks being pretty solid. He's just been playing well. And I think this is like a renaissance almost of AD carries in the LCS because Sven is still solid. FBI's been good. Wild Turtle's actually played pretty well considering how bad his team has been. Tactical's solid. Lost is good. Deathly's finally playing well. Neo's been playing well. Johnson's still a good player. It's really just Stixay, and Raze has been okay, but it's really just Stixay who's not been great this year. I know people would argue Johnson, but I still think Johnson's getting a pretty bad rap considering how bad his team has been playing. He's been playing pretty well. So it's cool to see that even in a time when AD carries are really strong right now in terms of just the players themselves, not even just the games or not just the champions, that that Lost can do this, and he showed again that he can play another champion now too. We already knew he could play things other than the Kai'Sa, but we hadn't seen it much this year. He pulls out the Tristana and just absolutely carries. I love it. I just, people can say what they want about a player and the fact that, they give him all the resources. That's fine. But we've seen what happens when you give a player resources and they don't do anything with it. Lost does something with it. He is willing to dive in and make plays. He just is. I'm really, really proud of him. I love seeing the way that he has played and the fact that it seems like he's comfortable no matter what position TSM are in to try to do something, to try to make this team better. And we could say the same about Huni too. I mean, the two players that we were all so worried about, and me again, like similarly to a certain degree, I was worried about him. But he has just been so good for them right now. I mean, so much better than I thought. The man doesn't die very much. He gets kills. You know, I don't know. I know he's losing lane. But that's because he's sacrificing to help the team out. And maybe this is just the new version of Huni, and we're just going to have to accept it as it is. That's fine. I don't care. I am so happy to just have a player who plays for the rest of his team and just makes plays when they need him to. You know, it doesn't matter for him at least what he does in the early game necessarily, because then by the end of the game, he's doing so well. It's such an early indicator, like an indicator for me is sure maybe he's not getting the kills, you know, maybe he's, you know, getting a lot of assists, which is fine, but his damage percentage for the team is almost 26%. It's the second best in the LCS, right behind Alfari. Sure, he's losing in lane, whatever. It doesn't end up mattering because he finds the CS later. And by them allowing him to play the weak side as much as he is, they're able to get other people ahead, and they're able to get other objectives. And then after 10 minutes, Huni just turns on, and he makes plays, and he pushes his lanes correctly, you know. And when they give him carry champions, he is performing. Power Vivo has still been a little skeptical for me, and I think he's going to get better, you know, as time goes on. That's just how he is. His spring is never as strong as his summer, and yet he still looks pretty solid. Sword Art's getting better. Spica still has some stuff I'd like for him to work on in terms of being more involved, but over the last 2 weeks, he has been a lot more involved. He's been playing well. The drafts have gotten so much better than they were. You know, TSM are showing that they can play more than just a couple champions. And they're bringing it out in big games. You know, they're bringing out the Seraphine in the 100 Thieves game. They're bringing out the Tristana. They're bringing out the Jace. They're bringing back the Alistar. And sure, teams are going to probably end up banning Kai'Sa. If I'm teams, I ban Kai'Sa, Hecarim, and Azir against them every time. And just see what happens. I think TSM will respond well. This is a good spot for them to be in. This next week, we'll go over the games, but I'm really proud of this team. I'm excited for them. Anywho, we'll do question of the week a little bit later. I got to end this one. I'm just excited. It's a good feeling about where they're at right now. And I was dreading it. After the Friday game, I was just dreading it. But they are showing resilience, and they are one of the best teams in the LCS right now. And it was hard for us to say that at the beginning. But we've been patient, and now we're getting to see the results of their hard work. If you like this show, please take a second to like, subscribe, and comment if you're watching on our YouTube channel. Make sure you hit that bell icon so you don't miss another episode. I want to continue this being hopefully the #1 TSM podcast on all podcasting platforms. If you feel so inclined, please leave a review, especially if you're listening on Apple. That'd be extremely appreciated. Share this with your friends. Tweet at us at TGHRobertHaynes or at TGHEsports. Please use the hashtag TalkingTSM when tweeting at us or sharing. Lastly, head to thegamehouse.com. I'm sorry I didn't put out a piece on TSM specifically last week. Last week was just a little bit weird, but things are good now. So make sure you take a look. Head to the TSM page under the Esports and League of Legends tabs to see all of our TSM content. With that, thank you for tuning in. This show comes out every Monday and Thursday and is exclusively for your TSM earholes. I'm Robert Haynes, and this has been Talking TSM. See you on Thursday.